The workers spent 15 months to dig through the Sierra Mountains. In 1869, Central Pacific workers finally arrived at Salt Lake City, Utah. On May 10th, Pacific Union and Central Pacific joined the eastern section and the western section at the Promontory Point. This marked the end of the 7-year project, joining the country's east to its west. Few days before the opening ceremony, Crocker's Chinese workers competed with the Irish workers from the east on laying tracks. Within 12 hours, the Irish workers laid 6 miles of tracks, while the Chinese workers laid 10 miles of tracks. Yet the effort of the Chinese men were credited to the 8 Irish workers.
In the ceremonies at Promontory for the completion of the railroad, most of the rail on the Central Pacific was actually laid by white workers, the Chinese doing most of the grading and tie laying and other support work. But the actual men, for instance, in the 10-mile day, the 8 men who laid the rail, we have their names. They're all Irish names. But behind those 8 men are hundreds of other men working, a great many of whom are Chinese.
That is why many Chinese historians contested the unfair treatment. In the photograph taken at the opening ceremony, not a single Chinese was in it.
When you have some 10,000 Chinese, what happened to them? Where are they? They totally disappear.
100 years had passed, yet history repeated itself at the same site for celebrating the railroad's 100th anniversary.
So there was a sort of, we were misled to think that we were going to be on the main program. Instead, we dedicated our plaque in a little, while the Golden Spike ceremony was going on with the televised throughout the nation, we were dedicating our plaque in a room of some 200 people. And so what it shows you that there is a lack of acknowledgement, the denial of the Chinese participation in the West. And well, history then just repeated itself the way I see it. Here, 100 years later, we were trying to put the Chinese back on the map, and it was still denied.
The host of the ceremony was John Volpe, the Secretary of Transportation. He did not mention any of the contributions from Chinese workers.
Who but Americans could lay 10 miles of track in one day? Who but Americans could blast through the summit? Who but Americans could lay tracks through the Sierra?
All those years of the exclusion law, the Chinese were considered outsiders, enemy aliens. So who would want to include them in American history?
In 1999, the federal agencies formally recognized the contribution from the Chinese workers at the same historical site. Al Yang Watson, who attended the ceremony, thinks that belated justice is always better than deliberate denial.
Probably on the 100th anniversary, which was in 1969, you have to remember civil rights laws and a better feeling of equality throughout the nation was just right on the edge at that time. I could see where the Chinese was not credited at all at that time. I think by the time you roll into the 1980s and the 1990s, you begin to see more and more actual crediting and actual historical findings that verified, you know, the various things that our people, Chinese, had done.
Starting from the discovery of gold in Sacramento in 1848, Chinese laborers had contributed significantly to developments in the West, including railway constructions, agricultural developments, levees, and many others. They poured in their blood, sweat, and tears. They were like sand in the rivers, tiny yet valuable. History will eventually give them a fair placement.
但是历史终究还是会给他们一个位置，还给他们一个公道。值得安慰的是，
In 1882, Congress signed the Chinese Exclusion Act. At the hearing, Charles Crocker, who recruited the Chinese laborers, gave the Chinese workers a fair assessment.
Without Chinese labor, we'd be thrown back in all branches of industry, farming, mining, reclaiming land, and everything else.
当年华工冒着生命危险，用赤裸裸的双手。
Chinese workers risked their lives and worked barehanded to dig the railroads in wilderness. They left their marks in history. On your next trip to Lake Tahoe or Reno, perhaps make a stop at the Donner Pass to cherish the contribution from our ancestors.
唐纳隘口驻足片刻，缅怀先人对这个国家的贡献。